Let's go.
What a lovely day!
Andy, there's a whole world out there. Jump in.
Can you dig it?
Yeah.
You must always pay strict attention.
I was just completely enamored by it the entire time.
Dude, he did not have to go that hard.
I know, man. Isn't it wild?
The Jaredcast.
So it begins.
Howdy, hey, what is up, ladies and gentlemen and everyone else? How you guys doing today? Welcome to the Jaredcast, the Halloween special, Halloween extravaganza, as Jared calls it in this little website that we got here. I'm excited. I'm so stoked. This is we're shaking it up quite a bit. But first off, my name is Jared A. With me, as always, is my lovely co-host, co-producer, Jared L. How you doing today, Jared?
Hello. I'm good. I had a pretty damn good week. I caught up on a lot of movies I've been needing to see, including Titan. I finally saw it, and what a movie it was. Lived up to the hype in my mind, so I'm very happy with that. But we're not here to talk about that. No. For our YouTube viewers, you kind of see what's going on right now. But if you're not on YouTube, probably a better idea to watch there for this one, but we'll make it easy and accessible for you anyways. We made a list of our top 32 favorite horror movies of all time. Put them in a bracket. They're ranked in seeds. You can see over here. We got our first matchup. I'll spoil it. Is Psycho and Saw, but they're ranked based off their average score from Rotten Tomatoes, Metacritic, and IMDb, I think. And then the tiebreaker was Letterboxd. Am I right?
You are correct.
Okay. And so that's how we got the seeds. So we have some sort of reasoning to it.
Yeah. It still gave me some heartbreaking matchups, not gonna lie.
Absolutely. There are a couple matchups that like thematically are kind of cool and interesting, which I'm excited for. But it's gonna be a rough one. I'm gonna hate every single round of this. But I guess we can just jump on in. First up is Psycho and Saw. Psycho being Hitchcock's fucking swan song, I guess, in a way. One of the biggest, most influential movies of all time, let alone horror movies. It has this first rank seed for a reason. It's an iconic film in the history of film and the history of horror. What's there left to say about Psycho? A lot of movies on this list even borrow heavily from its like pacing and kind of format. Some that jump to mind are like maybe The Witch, but like Audition, just this slow burn that you don't even know if it's a horror movie until randomly it just kicks off and gets fucking crazy from there. Crazy movie. Absolutely huge. And it's going against Saw, which is also an incredibly influential movie. Not starting, but kind of being the climax of that post 9/11 torture porn that everybody loves so much. You could throw that in with Hostel as the big two for that. It's included here. It's probably one of the weaker movies in this entire list, for sure. Yeah. But I think it earns its spot in creativity, in just shock value almost. It gets some points for that, and influence. It's also a crazy influential film. It's kind of appropriate these go up head to head. Personally, I think it's no contest. I think Psycho beats out Saw every day of the week. But I wanted to give a shout out to Saw for existing.
Yeah, I mean, Psycho is not my favorite Hitchcock. I've been kind of vocal about that over the years, but its place in film history for the shower scene alone, I think this movie deserves to be on the list. So even though I prefer like the more like whimsical and balls to the wall crazy Hitchcock, I still I still really like Psycho a lot, and
Mhm.
the Anthony Perkins performance is iconic as well. That last monologue is insane,
Yeah.
and the way his stare kind of with the fly like touching his face. I think my biggest flaw with Psycho is probably the is probably the very last thing kind of explaining
Mhm.
with the psychiatrist who thinks he knows everything.
Yeah.
Um, that's very common back then and very common in like murder mysteries and whodunits. So I don't blame them for having that in there, but it's
Mhm.
for sure the most boring part of the movie. And
Yeah.
with Saw, it's interesting because I saw it many many years ago, but I rewatched it yesterday,
Mm.
and still a good movie. I really like it.
You
A
could
lot
tell
of
by the tone. It's like, yeah, it's good.
yeah, it's
It's fine.
it's I, yeah, because I want it to be clear, like it's good, like it's not
Mhm.
the kind of schlocky like whatever movie like it has a
Yeah.
freaking 46 on Metacritic, like it does not deserve that.
No, not at
Um,
all.
this movie is incredibly influential. Like if you want to know if you're a young person who was born in like 2002 or something, and you want to know what that decade was like, just watch Saw.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was like to be alive in the early 2000s.
Mhm.
And yeah, the way I feel about it is kind of the same way I feel about Near Dark, like with Catherine Bigelow's work. Like you see a lot of the stuff that makes James Wan great, the stuff that makes Lee Whannell great. Lee Whannell just did The Invisible Man, and like you can see some of that in the writing of Saw, and you
Yeah.
can see the kind of sweeping camera movements that James Wan enjoys, and the kind of the really amazing and beautiful gore effects, and the fact that you still care about the children
Mhm.
throughout every single one of James Wan's movies. Yeah, it's a dare I say beautifully ugly movie, but I gotta give it to Psycho.
Yeah. I feel like Saw, I might be wrong in this, but with like slasher films, they kind of started the whole way too many horror sequels and they get gradually worse and more out there and strange as they go. And then Saw kind of revitalized that by like having way too many sequels that get worse as you go. And now we see that in uh, like the Conjuring movies, that whole universe. You get
Right.
it's everywhere now. Um, and it kind
Yeah.
of, I don't know, it kind of kick started that trend, I feel like.
Yeah, and it's weird calling this movie a torture porn because it's not really. It doesn't really
No.
like fit that because it's how do I say it? Like I think it inspired the sequels, which are definitely torture porn. Like,
Hmm.
but it really just feels like a thriller,
Yeah.
like a movie that really where the director really likes Seven. You know.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it has weirdly like a large amount of plot and like actually has something to say, which
Yeah.
everybody just ignored at the time and ignores now. Like we're just like, yeah, it killed a lot of people, and that's the movie. Um, so yeah, Psycho wins. Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise. This next one though is it's
Already fucking
very
hard.
tough because I love The Witch by Robert Eggers. This movie is an A24 release. I think it's absolutely brilliant. Came out in 2015, and I remember watching it. I remember being fucking just glued to my seat, man. I
Yeah.
could not move. I was paralyzed with fear during the possession scene. Um, I'm gonna. I guess we should we avoid spoilers in this episode? I don't know.
Um, I guess we can try our best, yeah. Because it's a
I can.
lot of movies, and we're going to be given recommendations. Part of the reason we're doing this is to give people movies to watch for Halloween.
Yeah.
So I guess do your best. If we accidentally spoil some stuff, all these movies are 100% worth a watch, even with spoilers.
Yeah.
But we'll try our best.
And then the movie going up against Raw, or going up against which is Raw. We talked a little bit about that. The another directorial debut by Julia Ducournau, Julia D.
Julia, our girl Julia.
It follows Justine, who's a vegetarian who starts to crave raw meat. And this movie, I think, like, I think it's every bit as terrifying as The Witch. I think both movies have this kind of really they're I think perfect screenplays. They both have something really unique to say. They both have a really unique perspective. They take familiar genres and familiar tropes, like, you know, the Salem witch trial era and the post-colonial stuff, and with Raw it takes the coming of age story, and they both kind of crank it up to 11 and make it really, really terrifying. You know, Raw is a lot faster paced. The Witch is a lot slower paced, but it serves both stories very, very well. This is a very, very difficult decision.
It's an absolutely devastating decision. I think these two being next to each other in the seating just even says that, like, critics don't even know which ones were that much better.
Yeah, I guess if we're talking about Robert Eggers' projects, I would say The Witch is inferior to The Lighthouse, and you can kind of see that there are not very many moments, but there's like maybe one or two where you can be like, oh, okay, this is a first film. But then again, it's the same with Raw. Like, so I don't know. You get, you know, both of the leads are very amazingly written women. Anya Taylor-Joy playing Thomason, and Garance Marillier playing Justine. I don't know. I think the one where I like walk away from and I think about it throughout the rest of my day, I gotta give it to Raw. I think it's just more emotionally effective. I think it's more bold in its color. It's more it's more bold in its use of color, and it's very complex sexually, which is I think very valuable when you're dealing with that kind of coming of age thing. With the coming of age thing with The Witch, you do get some of that, but not a whole lot on Thomason's side. More like on her little brother's side. But that doesn't necessarily make The Witch bad. I think maybe the reason I would give it to Raw is it just feels tighter as a movie, and even the parts where the movie slows down and really takes time to breathe and really, like, just, you know, if even it's just a slow motion shot of a horse, like, you're still kind of like really engaged in it. So I you know, and there's maybe one moment in The Witch, or maybe one sequence in The Witch where I'm kind of spacing out.
Yeah, I think that's fair. This is a very close race between these two. They might even be the closest for me in this first round. I love these films pretty much dead equally. Both are absolutely gorgeous. Both stick to a weird kind of like, they both have topics that aren't super well explored in horror, I guess is a good way to put it. In terms of, I don't know, you didn't say what Raw was really about, so I won't say, but in terms of that, and then like just kind of witchcraft is rarely done well now. And so both these films pull off a hard horror concept. Both lead performances are absolutely incredible. I love it both. The Witch made Anya Taylor-Joy one of my most like anticipated actresses to see everything she does.
Absolutely.
Still hyped for Last Night in Soho.
So
And then like on the other side, Raw introduced me to a actress that I had no idea existed, and she's fucking fantastic. She's even fantastic in Teton in like a lesser role. Um, they're both incredible movies, but I think one of them barely edges the other out, and I'm giving it to Raw as well. I think it commits to the style and pulls it off better, just slightly than The Witch. The Witch definitely commits to their style, no doubt, and it's kind of a turn off for some people. But I think Raw pulls it off a little bit better, and following that coming of age story perfectly, pretty much perfectly, gives it a lot of credit to be able to have the scary horror aspects of this movie mirror like a real life what could just be a drama. If you took out the one aspect of this movie, it would still hold up, and I don't think The Witch can say that if it was just a isolation story about this family. Maybe I guess you would just get Minari in a way. Um,
weird connection, but
the Witch is just Minari with demons. Um, but I think Raw just barely edges it out. Also, I was a little more uncomfortable and not really scared, but I was more left with a feeling of unease after watching Raw than I was The Witch. So I'm giving it to Raw barely. Both of these are incredible films, and I love them both.
yeah, if I guess that's an even better way of putting it. Like, which one disturbed us more? Cool. You ready?
I'm ready.
For oh my gosh, another crazy one.
This one, if you're listening at home and can't read, Hereditary versus The Conjuring. We get another A24 pick. Both movies kind of about haunting, but one takes a more pagan attitude toward it. The Conjuring, a modern classic in its own right. One of the better haunting movies that we see a lot these days with The Conjuring. You see it in Paranormal Activity. You see it in pretty much most horror movies that come out are kind of the same subject matter as The Conjuring. Great performances, great possession scenes. The effects in this movie are impeccable. Everything looks real, which it borrows somewhat from movies later on the list, like Poltergeist and The Exorcist, but graphically and like in terms of what the film like looks like, the visual spectacle of it is an improvement because modern technology. It follows a ghost hunting couple that you kind of latch onto pretty severely. You buy into their story, claim to be a true story, heavily heavily interpreted and kind of disproven at this point. But that doesn't take away from the film. I think it's a fantastic film. This was one that like I avoided seeing for too long because I was genuinely scared of it. I was like, this movie is going to terrify me, and it did. When I finally saw it, it scared the shit out of me. But the same can be said with Hereditary. Hereditary was a fucking experience the first time I saw it. It put Ari Aster as one of my most anticipated directors working today immediately. I left feeling so scared. I was like genuinely like a little boy in my room after watching this, like looking at the ceiling to see if there was anyone up there. Like this movie just fucked with my head. But it's also a story about family and I guess inheritance and fate and free will, and I think it handles all those topics excellently. Both are fantastic films, but I think I got to give this one to Hereditary personally. I think it edges out The Conjuring by a little bit.
Yeah, it's weird trying to pick which one's scarier, you know?
Yeah,
'Cause-
they're both probably two of, if not the two most scary movies on this list.
yeah, these two, and maybe The Descent are like the
Yeah.
ones that got me the most, like made
Mhm.
me jump the most. And yeah, it's interesting pitting these against each other. I think that they're both going to be. I think they're both. You know, we have yet to see the influence of Hereditary because it just came out in 2018.
Mhm.
But I mean, you look at the landscape of horror before and after The Conjuring, and once again, James Wan, because of his technical expertise, because of his ability to get you to care about the characters on top of getting scared, and on top of having fun, and on top of just walking away with a sense of like, I saw something new. You know, there's a reason why this franchise made over $1 billion. And you know, I really, really love this movie. I've seen it 5 times. I've seen Hereditary, I think 3. You know, I I think both of these movies in their main flaw, if it even is a flaw, is that they kind of wear their influences on their sleeve. You know, Hereditary is very, very influenced by Autumn Sonata and what's it called? Freaking Rosemary's Baby. And The Conjuring is very, very heavily influenced by The Shining, and they both kind of show it in their cinematography. And that's totally fine, but that just makes the comparison even harder. I will say, like, the one that kind of left a bigger impression on me is Hereditary, and I think it's like more technically competent despite the smaller budget. I think you know, that's not to say that The Conjuring isn't, but there aren't really any. You can kind of see the seams where the CGI ends and begins in The Conjuring. With Hereditary, you cannot, and I think it's very clever for doing so. I think another thing that edges out Hereditary is the score by Colin Stetson. It's much more original. It's much less The Shining.
Yeah, it's more memorable. Like, you ask somebody what the music in The Conjuring sounds like, and they wouldn't be able to tell you, but Hereditary kind of lingers with you a little more.
Yeah, and the ending finale, Hail Paimon, is like regularly played on my Spotify. Like, it doesn't matter what kind of mood I'm in. It's just
Psychotic.
it's just sonically so full and so powerful. And you get this, and I think I don't want to take away from Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson. They're amazing actors. There's a reason why people go to the theaters to see them fight demons. But the performance
But
by
Toni Collette deserved an Oscar. So
yeah, the performance by Toni Collette is really I think is the main thing that puts Hereditary in the spot where it is today. I think a lot of the reasons why film majors jerk it off is because of that performance and because of the dinner scene.
Yeah. So you're going with Hereditary?
Yes.
All right. Round 3, and we're almost half an hour in. Look at us go.
Oh my gosh.
Flying through it.
It's my turn.
It is.
Ooh, Ringu and Cabin in the Woods, getting our J horror in.
Yeah, our first
Yeah.
Asian pick of this bracket.
Yeah. the this movie kind of is the reason people love Japanese horror, along with The Grudge, along with Shudder and all that stuff. But I think Ringu, the reason why I wanted to add it into this list is because it's just a really, really solid movie. It's a really solid mystery and thriller, a really devastating ending. And I just love the way it factors in 90s technology, and like so brilliantly, like the use of tapes, the use of television screens, the use of the kind of natural unease that we feel when we see static on a TV. Like the movie plays around with that so well. The creature effects in that movie are iconic as well. And speaking of creature effects, we got it paired up against Cabin in the Woods. So many creatures in this movie.
Almost all of them.
Almost all of them. And there's one particular creature payoff that I think gives Cabin in the Woods the edge over Ringu for me. As iconic as Ringu is, as iconic as the performances are, especially the ex-husband played by Hiroyuki Sanada. He's still excellent to this day. He's one of my most anticipated actors when I go into a movie. I really love this film, but Cabin in the Woods is such a brilliant satire of horror while also affirming the kind of while affirming the power of monsters and the power of like fear. I think it's really, really brilliant on the part of Drew Goddard, who co-wrote the movie with Joss Whedon. You get that Joss Whedon signature sense of humor in there as well. But yeah, the Cabin in the Woods has a bunch of layers to it that I love. So I gotta give it to Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah, it's our first satire of the bracket as well. Not that this one's like a comedy like we'll see in Shaun of the Dead and What We Do in the Shadows, but it still plays on a genre in a beautiful way. And when you said it also affirms it, I couldn't agree more. And it does both excellently. The control. I guess I can't spoil. I keep forgetting not to do spoilers. Yeah, it's great. But also Ringu's fantastic too. Because a lot of the Cabin in the Woods greatness comes from the more layers you peel back of the movie. But the way that it's able to subvert the genre while like playing into it and be like, yeah, this is why horror is cliche. We're gonna make fun of it, but also here's why you love it, and we're gonna give you what you want. It has that attitude to it, and it does it to a T, and it does it perfectly. And Ringu is a fantastic fucking creature movie. Obviously, the original version of The Ring, which is a beloved film here in America as well. The original's better. I like it a little bit more. It's fucking creepy as hell. It scared the shit out of me. I'll tell you that. Even The Ring scared the shit out of me. I did see The Ring first, and then Ringu, but yeah, it's a terrifying fucking movie. It's definitely the scarier of these two, but I have to give the edge to Cabin in the Woods for the feat that it pulls off in the manner that it does. I think it's not an easy decision, but I think for me, Cabin in the Woods is a definite win.
Yes.
Look at us agreeing so far. Oh, now we're taking it back a couple years. We're getting Night of the Living Dead, one of also a movie here who kind of gets here on its influence heavily. It's one of the first and one of the best zombie movies. There would be very few zombie movies, if not for this movie, coming out in '68, and it deserves all the credit it gets. The effects in this movie are surprisingly good for '68. It's It's a fantastic movie. I don't know what to say. It's been a while since I've seen it. I'll be honest, but it's it's great. And then The Thing, which I'll start out saying is my winner for this, because it's one of my favorite horror movies of all time. It's a top dog for me, so I'm having to give it to it. But it's the practical effects in this movie, I think, surpass Night of the Living Dead. It's suspenseful as fuck. The distrust that it builds in you watching this movie, because you don't really know who's evil and who's not at any given time, is fantastic. Um, the like climaxes of this movie are fantastic, but it also excels in its subtle details, particularly in the ending and trying to decipher the ending. Um, it's a fantastic movie. If you haven't seen it, if you let this 80s classic slip through your fingers, do yourself a favor and watch it. But same goes with Night of the Living Dead. I don't want to discredit it. It's a
Yeah.
fantastic fucking movie, but it's got to be The Thing for me.
Yeah. Uh, it, this is an interesting matchup because both movies deal with the theme of paranoia. Both movies use very creative gore. Both movies have like a very bleak outlook on life. Night of the Living Dead is one of the first great social horrors. It's like social commentary has always been at the heart of horror, even before film existed. But Night of the Living Dead, whether it was intentional or not, is really, influential because of that. Also, before Night of the Living Dead, the zombie trope in horror movies was really, really racist. It was xenophobic against the Haitian culture and against and just kind of stereotyping voodoo and all that stuff. But with Night of the Living Dead, it kind of became about the terror comes from seeing people from seeing dead people eat living people. And oh my gosh, what a crazy and what an amazing way to pull it off. I would say the thing that makes The Thing a better movie is the writing of the characters. There are several characters in two characters in Night of the Living Dead that have absolutely no agency. They're just kind of there to be scared. And I think that's the biggest flaw of that movie. Despite the visceral terror of Night of the Living Dead and the really raw and brutal violence of it that I absolutely love, The Thing is just better. It's scarier. It's got two of the best characters in any horror movie ever. So I got to give it to The Thing.
Yeah. Sorry, Night of the Living Dead. We respect you. We love you. This one was kind of one of the easier ones so far.
Yeah.
For me at least. I don't want to speak for you.
No, it was pretty easy. Yeah. This one is not because
No.
I love. We're getting into some Middle Eastern horror with A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, movies entirely in Farsi, but it's an American production, but still stars mostly Persian cast. And Under the Shadow is also a Persian film, and it and both kind of deal with that setting in their horror and in their in the way they scare people. Under the Shadow, for those of you who don't know, because it's a lesser known movie, it's on Netflix. You should definitely check it out. It's about a mother and her child who are kind of trapped in an area that's being bombed regularly, and at the same time they're dealing with a ghost, a mysterious ghost that has a link to the child. With A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, we follow a lone vampire who kind of stalks men who hurt women at night, and it's we reviewed it on the podcast in our spoiler review. I definitely recommend you should check it out. And both movies feature great female leads, female performances. both movies are really well shot and really well directed and really kind of beautiful and haunting in their message and in their writing. And I love A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night so much. I've seen this movie 4 times. I've only seen Under the Shadow once, but Under the Shadow is just so much scarier. And so I think I'm going to give it to Under the Shadow. That's
The
that'll
hesitation.
be. Yeah, I also think that the sense of desperation really just makes it a great movie. And as much as I love A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, I think there are better vampire movies on this list.
Yeah, I think I agree with all your comments. Both of these movies have a very clear thing that they're trying to like say and comment on. Obviously, A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, she attacks men who hurts women. Surprise, surprise! It's about hey, don't do that. And then Under the Shadow is kind of the unease that comes with living in a war-torn country, a war that you have no real horse in, and you're just kind of a victim to both sides in a way. And both do an excellent fucking job. This is a tough one as well. I already said a lot about A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night in that episode, so I'll go a little lighter here because it's gonna be a long fucking episode. But Under the Shadow is also fantastic. This was my first watch, and I loved it. It contrasts that war theme with motherhood very well, and kind of dealing with inner failures at the same time in your personal life and in your career. It's also got great scenes. One that stands out is, I guess the doctor scene. I guess I could say. Probably can guess which one. Even if I said there's one scene that stands out, you could probably assume. But it's a great movie. I think I'm gonna be a little contrarian and give A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night the edge, though. I think it gives it sticks to its thesis a little better. It's got more of a style that I think was difficult to pull off, but they did a good job, and I commend that risk. It somewhat subverts the genre, even though it sticks to vampirism, like lore and vampirism movies, pretty heavily. It kind of stays in its confines a little bit, but I think it lasted longer with me. I think it's got more to say. Maybe it's because I've analyzed this one a little bit more in my film career, but I think I got to give this an edge. We're at a bit of an impasse.
Yeah. Do you want to call a tiebreaker, or do you want to?
Well, I felt bad that we had our first guest just waiting around, so I did already call him in. He is currently in the waiting room of this Zoom
Oh
call.
shit! Okay.
I brought him in just to help out with the next few rounds, but he can help out now, I guess. So we'll introduce our first guest.
I had no idea. I thought he was.
It was just good timing.
What's up, dude?
It happened to work out. Hello.
Sorry. I'm here. I'm here.
You're
Sorry
good.
for making you wait, man.
I called you in early. Actually, I was gonna have you help with the next few rounds, but we're at a bit of a tie as well. We don't know which one of these are better. I don't know if you've seen Under the Shadow. I think you've seen A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, but if you have any thoughts, let us know.
Can you repeat them again? I'm sorry. I just am wearing headphones, and
Oh, you're good.
I did not want to like do that whole thing, Like I didn't want to. I don't know if you guys were recording. I didn't want the sound. I don't even know if that's possible, but I was like, oh shoot.
You're chilling. You're chilling.
Good.
So I brought you in for the next few rounds, but you happen to join at a time when we were stuck in a tie currently between
Ooh.
A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night and Under the Shadow. I'm not sure if you've seen Under the Shadow. It kind of slipped under some radars. Both are great movies. I gave A Girl Walks Home Alone a bit of an edge, and Jared disagrees. So if you have any thoughts, it'd be a help.
Okay. The only thoughts I will have is that I haven't seen Under the Shadow, but I have
So
seen a
so
girl.
then try to win me over on A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, I guess is the way to do it.
Okay. Alrighty then. On the spot. All right. Truly, I think for me personally, and I know that I'm trying to persuade Jared here, but I guess I'll just speak from a place of how it made me feel. I thought it was just genuinely, I guess like a different sort of vampire film. Not only, and I don't mean this like in a kind of weird, I guess, foreigner sort of way, but I think I'm just so used to like the Western like depiction of a vampire. And, I guess like this over either you get this like you get the how would you say like Robert Rodriguez version of the vampires, right, from Dusk Till Dawn, or you'll get like super pretty sexual vampire. I think I for me just when I watched that movie, it's a breath of fresh air to see it from a different perspective. Not to mention like the I think the style and tone also takes away a lot of the homogeny of like what the movie could have been. Um,
Mhm.
but honestly, I just think like stylized version. Maybe for me it's style over substance, but like I really genuinely just really enjoyed the imagery of the movie.
Yeah.
Um, and that's something that I think stuck with me for a while. Not to say I'm a cinematographer, but I just really enjoy how it looks and the feel of it. It feels spooky. It feels kind of like distant too. Um, and I'm giving these words and adjectives that honestly don't sound very inviting, but it's something that I think like I'm not very good at describing right now, but it really projects itself to be like very obviously familiar with the genre, but different enough, I guess, for me to feel like there's something more to chew on, at least for me. And I really can't say anything about Under the Shadow, so I'm sorry about that.
No, you're
You're
good. You're
good. You're
good.
good.
We didn't talk about the style of it too much, and I agree. I love this style. I love the blending of genre between the horror and the western, and the noir. Um, but I think for me, that's kind of where the movie is both the strongest and the weakest, because it really relies on that combination, and doesn't have a whole lot of um, directly interesting things to say about love and about and about romance. Um, Granted, the romance is very beautifully portrayed and very beautifully performed and very beautifully acted. The dancing scene is, or not the dancing scene, the bedroom scene is one of my favorite scenes ever. But you know, I think with Under the Shadow, I'm not going to give it away, Renato, but the way the movie leaves you is the scars left by war and left by oppression on women. Like it you ca- like it just never the ending of the movie very clearly says that you can't leave those behind. Like they're going to follow you wherever you go, and even if you run away from them, they're going to be there to haunt someone else. um and I think that seeing that and seeing and kind of I think that just makes it a better horror movie,
So would you
if that
say
makes sense.
would you say then that like what Under the Shadow for you it more fulfills or like I guess quenches the thirst of like I guess like your like more so of like the like themes and symbology while like Girl Walks Alone is more so just like a stylized kind of I guess it's just more so style over substance. I just don't want to say that, but essentially like for lack of
It's
better words, would you say
it's
that's
not
kind of like what it is?
it's not style over substance, because both movies lean very heavily over on their style, and that's what makes
Right.
them strong. It's that um, I think Under the Shadow goes the extra mile and actually has something to. I think there's more clarity in its message
Mhm.
than in A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night.
Cool.
Yeah.
But I don't.
I Yeah,
I
sorry.
got
I was
you.
gonna say, I am willing to secede A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. It was a close race for me. I'm willing to give it to Under the Shadow. I think both of them are gonna lose to The Thing anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
This is very
Um,
true. This is very true.
so I'm willing to secede to move on to the next round.
Okay.
Wait, hey, where can I watch Under the Shadow? Is it like on streaming sites or anything like that?
Yeah, Netflix.
Netflix.
Okay, cool. Then I will give it a watch then, because you guys got me intrigued now.
Yeah, dude.
Do it. Next up, we've got two kind of modern classics as well. Two very tightly written scripts, and two movies that I love. One of which I saw for the first time this week, but
Oh,
it grabbed me pretty hard. I'm talking Get Out and I Saw the Devil. A tough matchup, man. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Um, Get Out being another directorial debut. We have a lot of those on this list somehow, from Jordan Peele, and I think it's one of the tightest written horror scripts of all time. It's every single line of every single scene has something to say, whether it's about the plot or the subject matter, and it does it very effectively. It's a very rewatchable movie. There's little tidbits that you pick up every single time you rewatch it. All the performances are fantastic, especially Daniel Kaluuya, and it's fantastic. And then you have I Saw the Devil, which is a great rape revenge serial killer hunting movie that I loved a lot.
Yeah, dude.
It's super interesting. It was a concept that I hadn't really had on my mind if I hadn't seen at all. A monster being created out of revenge on another monster is fucking impeccable. The climax and ending of this film is so satisfying and fucked up. The performances are fantastic, especially by the lead. I don't know how to pronounce his
Young
name,
Hyun
but like,
Lee.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
he was ready with that shit. And
Ah, dude, I
it's a
love
great
Young Hyun
fucking
Lee.
it's a great movie. Both of them are amazing. I might have to give my edge to Get Out,
Ooh.
um, personally, just because uh, I think it's got more to say. I think it's got a voice that needed speaking, but that doesn't take away from the plot at all. It doesn't take away from the story. There's not a lot of scares in here, but there's not a lot of scares in I Saw the Devil either. I Saw the Devil is a scarier movie for me, but I think Get Out just has a little more meat on its bones. And so I give it the edge barely, but there is an edge there.
So you've seen I Saw the Devil, Renato?
I have. It's a
Okay.
fantastic film.
What are your thoughts about it? Because I haven't.
Um. Okay. So personally, like, I mean, can I just? So I'm the tiebreaker, right? I can't say nothing about it yet.
No,
Or
I mean, you can go full whatever you want because
okay.
we'll
Okay.
just have you included in these next couple rounds,
Okay.
just for fun, spice things up a bit.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Awesome. All right. So I'm actually gonna lean the other way. I think I'm gonna
Mhm.
say I Saw the Devil. I think I enjoy a little bit more, and it's not for the lack of the messaging that Jordan Peele was trying to get to. I think it's a fantastic movie. I think Get Out obviously is gonna inspire it's gonna be like one of these movies that transcends time, right? However, just to like satisfy a little dark part of me, I really love more so the um like the themes, I guess, in I Saw the Devil. Just like you, Jared, I think when I saw the movie, no amount of preparation could like necessarily like prepare you for what you're gonna watch.
Yeah.
Um, and I had my friend Alex Silverman, shout you out, man, if you're watching. But he was like, dude, you gotta watch it. It's like a fucked up movie. And I was like, well, yeah, no shit, it's Korean. Like it's gonna be fucked up in some sort of way. Like it's gonna be like there's gonna be something like right.
Yep.
And I've always loved Korean cinema, and that's one that I haven't watched. It was a more contemporary one anyway. Um, but that movie for me, I think, was like something that I didn't know I wanted to watch until I had it. and it's great. I think the dissection of like the good and evil, the moralistic, like the morality of like killing, and like what in like in your head, how would you justify doing it comparatively with someone who's just as like crazy, you know what I'm saying? Just really, and then Jared actually put it really well, where he's like, you're watching a monster, or you're watching a man become a monster while he's basically tearing apart a monster. Um, and this movie doesn't pull any punches with it. Like that movie lets you sit amongst these like really awful people, and although like the character of Byung-hun Lee is very tragic and very sympathetic, you can't help but really feel like shocked at him sometimes. And those moments like that, where like I think you really get to sit with Byung-hun Lee and like put yourself in that position and say like, well, yes, I would do probably these things that he's doing, maybe, but at the same time, like I think overall, just that movie, like violence aside, it could still be an incredibly like impactful movie. Obviously, just wasn't as popular as Get Out, but
Right.
yeah, so I'm gonna have to say I saw The Devil for me.
Yeah, I mean, you got two of my favorite, of my personal favorite all-time villains. But I think Get Out is the better script. I think I Saw the Devil is better cinematography. I think this is very, very
It's
difficult
such a
again.
close one.
You can really see Jared dying inside from having to make this decision.
Yeah,
The amount of times he's been stalling is half of this time is Jared rambling while he stalls.
yeah. We're gonna cut like 10 minutes out of this episode because I just.
Damn, I don't know.
If it has to come down to comparing both movies and comparing those endings, I think I Saw the Devil gets the edge. I was leaning towards Get Out, but I think that thing you said about the void, Renato, I think that won me over.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that at all, honestly. Like, they're both incredible movies. Both easily deserve their place in this list, but yeah, watch them both.
Hell yeah. Next up, we got Shaun of the Dead and Green Room. What a combination!
Yeah, this one might be as tough for me as like Get Out and I Saw the Devil is for you.
Oh yeah. I just rewatched Green Room. I have not seen Shaun of the Dead since last year, but I've seen it a bunch of times. Green Room kind of dealing with a group of punks being trapped in a bar after witnessing a murder by neo-Nazis, and so they have to fight their way out, and mayhem ensues. And Shaun of the Dead follows two couch potato slackers, two man children, who find themselves in a zombie apocalypse, and they have to learn to take responsibility and kind of they have to
wait for it to all blow over.
Yeah, they exactly. They also kind of have to deal with the mayhem that ensues. I think for me, I love Green Room so much. I think but I do. Ooh. I just think Shaun of the Dead is the best horror comedy probably of all time. Yeah. And Green Room is a great thriller. It's a great gore fest. It feels every single scene feels really realistic. Both movies have characters that are frustratingly stupid, and that plays into my enjoyment of the film. And yeah, I don't know. I got to give it to Shaun of the Dead. Yeah.
All right.
Go ahead, Jared.
All right. Yeah, this one's fucking tough. I love both of these movies very dearly. Shaun of the Dead might be my favorite Edgar Wright film. I go back and forth between that and Scott Pilgrim. But Green Room is fantastic through and through. It's claustrophobic. It's got great gore. you gotta hand it to the gore in this one. It's got great performances, and you fucking latch onto these characters like crazy.
Yeah.
Like, you get a late Anton Yelkin performance that is so endearing, and you just root for him so hard. Maybe is pretty great in it too.
Yeah.
All around, the entire cast is stacked for this one, and it might be the hardest I root for any protagonist in any of these movies. But Shaun of the Dead's also got so much charm, so much wit, so much creativity. The physical humor is impeccable. The performances by the dynamic duo are incredible as always. Um, and it's so fantastically directed and hilarious. Um, so I really don't know. Like both of these I love so much. I'm leaning a little Shaun of the Dead, but I'm not gonna tally my vote yet because I might be convinced otherwise. I don't know. Renato, what do you got?
I'm gonna be the buzzkill and just straight up say Shaun of the Dead. I think Shaun of the Dead. As much as I love Green Room, I do love Green Room a ton. I just think Shaun of the Dead, though. However, I just think like I don't know, Edgar Wright just did everything so fucking perfectly for that movie. Like the whole like bringing these motifs back and like always coming and bringing them back full circle, right? Like him waking up to go to the shop at the very beginning and then returning once the apocalypse happens, and it's just he's so freaking oblivious to it. Is such wonderful humor. Not to mention the opening scene or the opening, I guess you can call it like the credits where they're basically like running through the motions of the zombies of the mundane like everyday life. People were going to work, people are like riding the bus. It's all this kind of like uh poking fun at just like the everyday life, I guess. But the humor is impeccable. Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, like right off the bat, you could just see like that they were best friends from the get-go. It's such a fun dynamic to see. Both of them, like Simon being torn both by like his responsibility and by his love for his like dumb friend. It's just overall super charming. That whole, and then not to mention, right, like the comedy's great, but I think what I got to really applaud Edgar Wright for is just like when he does get serious, it's actually like really, really like, oh wow, like that's really um, heavy. And I mean, the movie's been out for a while. I'm pretty sure many people would know, but it's just right, like this, like a point of like where he has to make a decision. Sean does, and it's just like the performances, especially from Simon Pegg, being able to go from kind of like ditzy, kind of dumb dude who kind of just stumbles everywhere to all of a sudden this incredibly mature and like harrowing, like distraught man is really great. So I just think Edgar Wright, kind of like for how young he was at that point, like just to be able to really cultivate something great right off the bat is just insane. But Green Room is great. I know I spoke on Shaun of the Dead, but Green Room is fantastic.
Yeah. Before we move on, I want to shout out Imogen Poots and Patrick Stewart and Macon Blair. I think those are besides Anton, I think those were the standout performances to me.
Was Macon Blair in his third movie? I didn't see that one.
I didn't. I don't remember. His third movie is kind of forgettable.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Damn.
Well, Jared, what say you? What say you,
Yeah,
Jared?
I'm convinced with Shaun of the Dead. I think for me, what gives it the edge is "Don't Stop Me Now." I think that's the one scene that tips it over. It is very close, but we'll give this one to Sean through and through.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So with you have two of the most influential movies on this list going up against each other. Rosemary's Baby versus Scream. I love Rosemary's Baby. It's one of the best endings I've ever seen. One of the I totally forgot what score I gave it. But I think it's two of the best performances in any horror movie. You got Mia Farrow, you got John Cassavetes. incredible actors. You have a devastating ending that many people have tried to replicate since, and many people have succeeded, but most people have failed. And then with Scream, you see the culmination of everything that Wes Craven was building from the Last House on the Left all the way to the Nightmare franchise, and right back to Scream. I think this movie it's my personal favorite slasher of all time. But I think it's also just really competently directed. It's all of the actors are they behave so wildly, but you realize like, oh shit, these are children still, and they're still and they're running around with knives and shit and trying not to get stabbed, and it's really it's a really powerful ending. It's one of the most badass transformations you see in Sidney Prescott. But then again, the transformation that you see in Mia Farrow is really iconic and really bold and really beautiful and really amazing to watch and really spectacular. I'm gonna give the edge, however, to I also want to shout out the opening to Scream. I think it's one of the best opening sequences on this list. And I love Wes Craven so much for that. And that's why I'm still very excited to see Scream 5 coming out in January. But because Rosemary's Baby is just that much more disturbing, and it absolutely pays off. And I don't want to take away from Sidney Prescott's transformation in Scream, but I'm going to give it to Rosemary's Baby.
Damn, I thought for sure you'd be a Scream boy.
I know.
I know that's one of your favorites. I'm shocked.
It's a personal favorite, but I'll give it to the better movie.
Yeah, fair. Renato, let's hear your thoughts.
I have seen Rosemary's Baby, but it's been a while. It's been like 3 years, so I don't have like the freshest mind on it. Scream, I
to be
saw
fair,
last month.
I also want to say for the audience, we didn't warn Renato about what movies are on here at all. We're just throwing him in. He has zero time to prepare, so like if he hasn't seen a movie or hasn't seen it recently, he is forgiven 100%.
Yes. I hope nobody like sends this to like any potential employer and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, Nato doesn't watch Rosemary's Baby."
You can't hire him. He hasn't seen Rosemary's Baby every 3 years.
But okay. But yeah, all jokes aside though, I'm gonna talk about the best movie out of the two, and that's Scream. I think for me, obviously biased as fuck because I also agree with Jared. That's my favorite slasher. I probably would put it like my second favorite horror film besides like the Thing. So I get spoiler for that one, but so like I think for me it just seems so fitting because again Jared wonderfully kind of he sewed a gosh darn like tale about Wes Craven and everything. I think that is just so fitting, considering that Wes was the one who really cultivated like what we now know as like of horror. He just kind of carried the torch and made these classic films that just are always going to be felt in horror cinema. It only made sense for him to revitalize the horror genre again, revitalize the slasher genre again in the 90s. For using Kevin Williams' script, who by all means like that was such a crazy like endeavor. I think like such a risky script to make, considering that slashers were not really popular at the time, and not to mention to be self-aware to the point where you can basically consider your movie like a meta film. Not to mention the absolute stellar performance from Matthew Lillard. I know that he gets like a lot of rap because he was like a part of that like the 90s, early 2000s group with Freddie Prinze Jr. and whatnot, but he genuinely is fantastic in Scream. I can talk for hours about the movie, but just to kind of sum it up, I just think that for what it's worth, like the context behind like the horror genre, and then like all the culmination of what kind of amounted to what Scream eventually became, and for it to be such a like a I guess a phenomenon in like the horror genre, to not only pick it up and lifted it into popularity again. But to keep going strong, I'm kind of with Jared where it's like I'm excited for the new one. Kind of worried that it's coming out in January, but but I'll hold my breath for that one. But
Mhm.
yeah, I'll have to go with Scream.
Mm. That means it's all on my shoulders, huh? Um, I was hoping it wasn't because this is a close one for me too. Scream is probably my second favorite slasher, going against the grain. Um, but it's still a fantastic fucking movie. Its influence bleeds throughout cinema ever since late '90s into now. You feel its fingerprints all over the place. But same goes for Rosemary's Baby. It's one of the most influential horror movies on this list. It's up there with Psycho in terms of that regard.
Hmm.
And it's so fucking good. I'll keep this brief because you both talked pretty eloquently and extensively on both movies. I think we gave both their justice. I'm giving the edge here to Rosemary's Baby.
Ooh.
I think I cared a little bit more about the characters. I think it's a little more interesting in terms of plot and story. Um, and I give it a little bit of a legacy boost. But Scream is so much fun. If I had to sit down and watch either one of these right now, I would watch Scream. But I think in terms of my thoughts and my likes and dislikes, I'm barely giving the edge out to Rosemary's Baby here.
I agree. Yeah. It hurts my heart so much to vote against
Yeah,
Sidney
it's
Prescott, my favorite character ever. Yeah, whatever.
it's tough. It is tough. Renato, have you seen Train to Busan by chance? I don't want to take up your whole day too, so if you want to bounce out at any point, you
Uh,
can. Um,
I have not seen Train to Busan. That's a zombie movie, right? The Korean zombie movie.
yes, correct.
Unfortunately, no, I have not seen that one.
Okay. Well, if you want to stay for it, feel free. If you want to head out, head out. But we're pitting Train to Busan up with The Exorcist this round.
Oh, okay.
Um,
I'll stay for this.
you'll stick
I won't
around.
vote, but I'll give my opinion when you guys are both done.
All right. For me, I love both these movies. I think Train to Busan is an execution of a genre that's not overdone, but it's getting close. But it does so in a fresh way, an exciting way, and a way that I care about the characters. We mentioned the Night of the Living Dead earlier. This kind of expands on what it set out to do, where the fear comes from these people who are alive eating people who are living. But you care so much about the people who are living here. The father dynamic of this relationship is beautiful. It's heartbreaking. It's exciting to watch, and it adds so much weight to it. The character arcs with some of the side characters that are also in the train is fantastic. The zombies are terrifying. They're kind of in the same. There's a lot of different kinds of zombies. They're kind of in the same department as like World War Z, where they're fast but they're kind of dumb. But if they work together as a group, it's great. Which is really what zombies are like. The fear for me for zombies are uh, their collective strength
Yeah.
is what's overwhelming and what's fantastic. So this is a great movie, but The Exorcist is up there like with The Thing and some of my favorite movies of all time and favorite horror movies of all time. I love this movie. It's fucked up. There's some weird allegories to puberty in here that I love. There's a lot of great characters. Um, the possession and exorcism scenes are some of the best of all time, if not the best of all time. The practical effects are impeccable. The cinematography is great, and the score is a top three horror score of all time. So, long story short, I give it to The Exorcist, but Train to Busan is a fucking hidden gem of Korean horror for sure.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you and give the vote to The Exorcist. But I want to say though, as far as zombie movies, I think Train to Busan is the second best on this list. And as far as possession movies, I think The Exorcist is only the third best. But what I love about The Exorcist is I think it's just more bold. I think it's more brash. I think it's more it's more fuck you to Hollywood and more fuck you to those conventions. I think I love Train to Busan so much. I think it's such an amazing movie. I'm glad that it's kind of keeping Korean horror alive in America and keeping that love alive. When I watch it with other people, they're freaking screaming at the TV. Every time I've seen it, I have to shush my friends because they're so emotionally invested in it. It's a freaking roller coaster. It's amazing. I can't get enough of it, especially the dad, the good dad in the beginning. Just the idea of punching a zombie and still like and still like making me believe that he could do it. Like yeah, it's great. I love him. He's one of my he's gonna be in the Eternals, which I'm very excited. I'm very excited to see him. Yeah, he's one of the Eternals. Yeah, so I'm excited to see him on screen and get that Disney money.
Yeah, I hope it's just him punching people too. Like I want him to be the same character.
Dude, he's in a movie. He's in a serial killer movie called The Gangster, the Cop, and the Devil, and he's a gangster and he punches people. He's great. He nails that absolute brute. But yeah, The Exorcist is, I just love how they have so many different opportunities to be sentimental and they just don't. They just don't go there. I do have some problems with The Exorcist, which I think we'll get to in the second round. But yeah, give it to The Exorcist.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna agree with you guys anyway, because, but I'm glad we all kind of just agreed on this one. But yeah, I think William Friedkin's adaptation is just one of like the best. I will say though, maybe as time has gone on, that whole tagline of the scariest movie of all time, I think
No.
we're in after a while. Like I'm kind of like, all right, maybe. Obviously, again, fear is subjective. Like in I guess in that sense, when it comes to movies, I'm pretty sure Train to Busan is great. If these fellas say that it's great, then I'm pretty sure that it is fantastic, and I have to watch it now. So
you definitely should.
Under the Shadow and Train to Busan. All right.
You're gonna be like standing up and sitting down and standing up. It's so good. It's so
good. There's a man who walks through a train and just punches like 6 zombies to lead the way.
It's amazing.
What's not to love?
Okay, cool. Yeah, I just rewatched these movies last night. Both excellent. The Descent is one of my personal favorites of all time. Let the Right One In is, I think. Let's see. The best vampire movie on this list. But I don't know. With The Descent, you're following a group of 6 women going into a cave where they encounter mysterious creatures, and it's very claustrophobic. It's very brilliantly shot on such a small budget. There are maybe 2 shots in the movie that are that where you can see the special effects age, but other than that, it's perfect. And the same with Let the Right One In. There are 2 shots where I'm like 2 or 3 shots where I'm like, eh. But you have this brilliant kind of look at childhood and innocence and all that stuff, and I think maybe it's weird because I think the writing is better in Let the Right One In, but I think the directing is better in The Descent, because they're doing this with they're putting film cameras and building caves around the cameras so that they feel like really really tight in there. I still have no idea how they're able to get some of those shots. Movie came out over a decade ago and it's still scary. Like it's genuinely like I jumped like 3 times last night. And so I also think, more blood is better. No, I'm just
Absolutely.
kidding. I'm just kidding. But
Nope, absolutely. We
yeah,
need it all the time.
as painful as it is, I gotta give it to The Descent, because I do love Let the Right One In. It's one of my favorite Swedish movies. It's one of my favorite vampire movies. But The Descent is just balls to the wall insane, and I need that out of my horror.
Yeah. This is another tough one for me. I agree. I think it's the best vampire movie on here. Um, but The Descent is scarier, and I think I like it more. And I think if I was going to rewatch one of them, I would watch The Descent before Let the Right One In.
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest vampire fan to begin with, and so like it's I'm starting at a level probably lower than others. Um, and I love claustrophobic horror. Green Room is also one on this list that does that fantastically, but not nearly to the extent that The Descent does. It uses claustrophobia as a horror. It will instill that in you even if you aren't claustrophobic. I think cave diving is one of the dumbest things people do. Stay out of there. just just don't. There's no need to go down that hard. Um,
Yeah, I agree with you guys too. I think The Descent was one of the first few movies that I saw that genuinely gave me freaking nightmares. Watching it. Um, it's a as a kid it was not a good time, but watching it, obviously when I rewatched it again in high school and then saw it multiple times in college, I think just like there's a lot to appreciate. Like I know that the movie is very very scary. And I think that's the best attribute of it, that it maintains its scariness throughout time. And I think it's because of how close everything is. You guys mentioned the whole cave diving shit, which I agree with Jared too. Why do people do that?
just don't.
I, I get it. I get it. Like thrill seekers, but like that's a thrill that does not need to be sought after. That one's truly terrifying.
Yeah.
Besides getting stuck in a cave, you might meet these like hairless vampire people. So it's better not to do that. But honestly, like that, I really like the look of the creatures. They look terrifying. The performances from the amazing like women too. Just like they sell it so hard, and you can't help but genuinely feel like distressed over what's happening to them. Um, and I honestly, just for what it is, and how also Jared mentioned about like the how like basically that movie's also low key like on a super low budget, like for them to make it as like I guess culturally significant. Um, um, I just think overall it's just a masterclass of like suspense and horror.
Yeah.
I agree.
Cool. Moving on, I guess. Uh, we've got a matchup here. We got a matchup, boys.
All right.
It's What We Do in the Shadows versus The Shining, an unlikely duo. Um, Look, I love What We Do in the Shadows. This was one of my pick. I actually take it back. This is the best vampire movie in here. Sorry, Let the Right One In. I think this one's better. Um, I love it. I think it plays with every trope you want the movie to play with. It does it and it executes it perfectly. It's probably the most quotable movie on this list by a decent amount. Sorry, Shaun of the Dead. Um, Taika Waititi absolutely kills it, directing and acting in this. Jermaine Clement is another standout. It's fucking hilarious, and I love it. But also, like, it's The Shining, and so I gotta give it to The Shining. As much as it hurts, it's just a better movie, through and through. I think it beats every aspect out, except comedy, and it's not supposed to. So, I got to give it to The Shining, although I love What We Do in the Shadows a lot. This one, I'm contractually obligated.
Yeah, it's kind of no contest. As much as I love Taika Waititi and as much as I adore that cast. Oh my god, and the werewolf scene is the only good werewolf scene in cinematic history. No, I'm just kidding. It's the only one you need though. It's so funny. It's so good.
Yeah.
The idea that they get upset when you start cursing and like it's
Werewolves, not
so,
swearwolves.
werewolves, not swearwolves. Yeah, but the Shining is probably my favorite Kubrick. Maybe his best. Some people may disagree, but I think I said it before in our review for the Stephen King episode. Everything that people criticize Kubrick for in his other movies, I think absolutely shines here. I think this movie validates him as one of the greatest directors of all time, and it's just a really devastating movie. It's a really brilliantly constructed movie. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I agree, and I really won't say much about it because you guys pretty much just said it all. So, I think The Shining's great. I think The Shining's amazing, and if you guys haven't already watched What We Do in the Shadows, the show is also worth a watch. I don't know if you guys have given it the time of day, but the show is also fantastic.
Yeah.
It's great.
Even though The Shining is a better movie, I would say the more necessary Halloween watch every year is What We Do in the Shadows.
Absolutely. You getting the boys together and you're watching The Shining, it's going to be a weird time. But you're watching What We Do in the Shadows, and it's a fucking blast.
What are you talking about, man? Everyone wants to see The Shining. We're all gonna have fun and have popcorn and stuff.
Come play with us.
Yeah. This one is very troubling for me as well. You got one of my favorite movies from the 70s going up against one of my favorite movies from the early 2000s. I love Audition. These are, as far as like personal taste and personal scores, I gave these both 10s. They're absolutely stunning and brilliant and disturbing and horrible, and yet so intellectually enriching, so so cinematically inspiring, so just dreadful all the way through. And I think, you know, just because I'm very easily deciding Alien, don't let that discount you guys from watching Audition. It's truly a fucked up movie. I think it's my favorite J horror of all time, and definitely watch it out. If you need more selling on this one, this movie made Rob Zombie sick. This movie made Eli Roth gag, like when they saw it. So don't let this easy vote deter you from watching Audition. Definitely watch Audition if you think you can handle it.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen Audition. I'm aware of it. I'm one of the few people that haven't watched it. So I gotta add that to the list. Alien
kitty,
is
kitty, 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 kitty.
There we go. I'm gonna do this today. I'm gonna watch this today.
Yeah.
But
please,
yeah, no.
Please text me after you watch Audition, because I want to know your immediate reaction.
I will text you and I will tell you how awful it all was. Not critically, but just obviously just wow. This was. I can understand why Eli Roth wanted to gag.
This one has similar vibes to the last one for me. I really like Audition. This bracket warranted a rewatch. I had seen it before. I couldn't remember if I had or not for some reason. But once it started, I was like, oh, this fucking trauma. It's great. It's a fantastic film. It's fucked up. It's gory. But it's worth a watch for sure. But man, Alien is just one of the best. You just have to give it the credit it's due. So because it's also an easy decision for me, don't discount Audition. Watch it. It's a fantastic movie, but it's not quite on the level Alien's at.
For sure. I'm gonna have to call it a day, gentlemen.
Yes.
I have run out of
Thank you for
time.
joining us.
Thank you for your help.
We appreciate you. It's weird that we all saluted individually. I don't know why we all instinctively went to that.
It's gonna look nice on the. It's gonna look nice on the YouTube. That we're
Yeah.
all just. But
Absolutely. Thank
anyway.
you again. Maybe I'll give you a phone call if we're struggling, but have a good rest of your day. We
Yeah, man.
appreciate
You guys too. Have a fun time picking which movies are better from another.
We'll try.
All right. See ya.
See you.
Later.
All right.
Love that
Following
guy.
that up. Yeah, what a legend.
Oh, I'm
Oh,
leaving.
he's
Sorry.
still
My bad.
here.
My bad. My
Oh,
bad. My
he
bad.
just wanted to
Bye.
hear us. I hate him.
Bye,
I
guys.
hate him. See ya.
This is wait. Before I go, this is like Bo Burnham's Inside, where like he's not even.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Seriously though, have a good one, guys.
So yeah.
Later.
Oh, thank God he's gone. All right. So no.
Man.
What a wholesome man. Love him to death. But
Yes.
moving on, we've got a matchup. A match up. Suspiria and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think our only Italian representation, and therefore our only Gaio film representation, and another fucking slash. Our only veganism represent. Actually, no, it's not because it's raw. Damn it. uh,
Yeah.
both great movies. Suspiria being the peak of its genre and a underappreciated genre at that. Again, shout out to Last Night at Soho. I don't know if it's a Gaio movie, but it sure fucking looked like it. Um,
Yeah.
and Suspiria is part of the reason I'm so excited for it. It's a great genre. Even the remake of this movie is fantastic. It's influential. It's suspenseful. It's thrilling. And Chainsaw Massacre is Chainsaw Massacre. It's another great slasher, but with a good kind of unique-ish take on it. It's violent. It's 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 weird because like I'm thinking Chainsaw Massacre 2 and they're incredibly different movies.
No.
So in my mind, like I just want to talk Chainsaw Massacre 2, but that wouldn't even be as close as this one is. I think this is a
No.
much closer matchup, being the original. I got to give it to Suspiria for the motherland, but Texas Chainsaw Massacre is one of the greatest slashers of all time. I think it'd fall in. How many slashers do we have on this list? 3?
Quite a bit. Quite a few.
Yeah, but it's toward the bottom of the
4,
slashers for
2.
me, but it's still a fantastic slasher at that. Um, I love it, but Suspiria takes the win for me.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about my personal favorite slashers. The first one being Scream. I think Suspiria is number 2 and Texas Chainsaw is number 3. It's just a sad mashup that they kind of that they all got knocked out early. But yeah, Suspiria is absolutely brilliant. I got a chance recently to show it to I I think it was no, it was 2019. I got to see the 4K remaster in a theater, and it's absolutely gorgeous. But if you want a movie that'll make you feel like you need to take a shower, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is that movie.
Yeah.
It you know, Leatherface, despite only having like one great film, I think is every bit as iconic as Myers, Freddy, and Jason for a reason. And I think the movie like is absolutely perfect. It's one of the best instances of low budget horror on this list, being
Mm-hmm.
amazing. But yeah, I got to give it to Suspiria.
Yep.
Just because cinema. This one is even more.
Mm-hmm.
I feel real bad about this one. Because I saw both pretty recently. Actually, I think I saw Halloween for the first time just a couple years ago. I rewatched it again this year to prep for Halloween Kills. But you know, I think it's of the big three. the big three being Freddy, Jason, and Michael. I think Michael is my favorite character. I don't think that Halloween is a better slasher than those movies, or not than those movies, but than other movies on this list. Not just because of the kills, but just because I think some of it is pretty dated. However, I will say it's a masterclass in like Texas Chainsaw Masterclass in low budget horror. The idea and the concept of Michael Myers, I think, is one of the most creative on this list. The idea that there's a boogeyman and he's real, and he's really coming after your kids. He's really coming after teenagers who don't believe in him and who don't take him seriously enough. You get the breakout of Jamie Lee Curtis, who's one of my favorite actresses since I was a little kid. I started watching her in comedies, and then I was like, oh, she's in a bunch of horror when I started watching horror. This is one of her best performances, even though it's one of her earliest. But Possession features, I think, maybe the best acting performance on this entire list. I think, let me see if I can pronounce her name. I doubt it. Either way, this is, I think, the best. It's not demonic, but I think it's the best demon. It's the best possession, as the title suggests, on this list. I'm not going to give too much away because it's really, really crazy and emotional. It's an emotional roller coaster. There are images in this movie that'll make you that'll stick with you for the rest of your life. I'm even thinking about them right now. But so she plays Anna/Helen, if that makes any sense for anybody who hasn't seen the movie. But yeah, I gotta give it to Possession. It's just so devastating and so brave and so bold cinematically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had not seen Possession up until this bracket, and I thought it was fantastic. It's a great breakup movie. It plays on when you break up with somebody, you like can't help but think, oh, are they like upgrading after me? Are they going to move on to somebody who's better than me? Whether that's like sexually or romantically or whatever. And it's kind of about that, and it's about that relationship and kind of going through the motions on that. I agree. I think it's one of the best performances on this list from the same actress you had mentioned. But I don't know. I think this is also, for me, the second weakest film in this entire this bracket.
Really?
Which is still, yeah. I think the film is fantastic. Half the performances are great. I love Sam Neill. I was not a fan of him in this movie. I think he could have done a better job, and I think he has it in him to do a better job. I think it's got one of the most unsettling creature designs, monster designs in this list. It's gross. It's terrifying. It's kind of Cabin in the Woodsy in that it doesn't try to be scary until like it wants to, and it takes its time getting to that point. Same with Audition, kind of. But Halloween's my favorite slasher. It's so much fun. It's suspenseful. The score gets me like hyped up and terrified at the same time. I think Michael Myers is also the greatest slasher villain. Shout out William Shatner for lending his face. And yeah, it's just such a fun movie. It's suspenseful. It's just great to watch. I love this movie a lot. It's nostalgic for me. That probably has a big part of it as well. I loved Possession, but I have to give it to Halloween on this one. So we're at an impasse.
We are.
And I don't know anybody who's seen Possession.
I didn't mind Sam Neill's performance, but is there anything else that you would say you would puts Halloween above Possession for you, or any other critiques you have against Possession?
I think Possession's a little bloated as well. I think it's got a structure that's similar to like a Nightmare, and it's like fragmentation and it's like scatteredness, and a lot of times that works for it, but sometimes it doesn't. At least on a first watch. I'm sure rewatching this movie, it gets better and better every single time.
Yeah.
I appreciated its nuances that come with that fracturedness, but I think it's at the end of the day, it didn't quite grip me as much as it needed to. And I think it relies on you kind of fully buying into that and buying into their relationship. And when half the people in the relationship don't quite do it for me, it starts to crumble a little bit.
As just purely based on sight and sound of cinema, I still like Possession more. But I am willing to give it to Halloween because I think while the stuff that you just said is exactly why I like it. So, but I don't want to keep this going for too long. So I'll say this: like Carpenter had much less to work with than this Polish director whose name I can't pronounce. And I think because he accomplished it with even less money, with even less resources, and still made something that holds up for the most part. That kills that still are disturbing, especially the first one, and a character that's so relatable and so interesting in Laurie. I think I'll give it to Halloween.
All right.
Yeah.
I appreciate your concede. It was a tough one, though. Possession is a great movie. I know I kind of talked shit on it when I was stating my case. I don't mean that it's a bad movie at all.
No.
I think it's fantastic. I think it's worth a watch if you haven't seen it. It's another one of the ones on this list that might not have caught as many people's eye, especially as Halloween. But if you haven't seen it and you want some also kind of fucked up, weird fever dream of a movie, it'll knock your socks off.
Yeah. And if you know me personally, it has me written all over it.
Absolutely.
So I think that's
from
a
the
big
point it
factor
says
as
starring Sam Neill, Jared's gonna give it a 10.
That's not one of them. But yeah. Definitely recommend Possession. There's a 4K remaster that's playing in theaters right now. So hopefully that means a new digital release. The Fly and Poltergeist, Cronenberg versus Hooper. I do love Poltergeist a lot. I think, especially when they reveal the thing that's haunting them, I think it's absolutely brilliant. There's a lot of great effects in there. It's kind of this beautiful marriage between Tobe Hooper's technical mastery and Steven Spielberg's kind of sentiment and sense of adventure and sense of and love for pulp. And then The Fly is just a really devastating body horror. It is kind of the Citizen Kane of body horror, if I can go that far, and kind of change the game as far as what was possible, what could be, what you could do with a love story. Talk about iconic breakups like Possession, like The Fly is one of the best. For now, I want to hear you out because I know both of these were on your list, right? Yeah. I did not have Poltergeist on my list. For now, I'll give it to The Fly, but I'll hear you out just in case. Just because The Fly is like really insane and still today.
I'm with you too. Like this is a very tough one. These ones are pretty dead even for me. On one hand, I agree. The Fly is the Citizen Kane of body horror, and Cronenberg is I guess the Orson Welles of body horror, but like he just is body horror. When you think body horror, the first thing that comes to your head is Cronenberg, and therefore this movie. Fantastic performance by a fantastic dapper young man, Jeff Goldblum. It's great. It's disgusting. It's horrible in the best way. It's awesome. I love it. The breakup aspects of this movie are also fantastic. I'm leaning Poltergeist because I think the practical effects blow me away. Even to this day, from when it came out, just like things sliding across the floor, lifting up, like it looks good. The CGI looks dated as fuck for sure, but a lot of the other effects are fantastic. This and The Exorcist cemented the putting something on Indian burial ground causes a haunting trope to explode. It's part of the reason that it is. It's incredibly influential. You see its fingerprints in like The Conjuring. I don't think there would be The Conjuring if not for Poltergeist. That might be a bold claim, or at least it wouldn't be what it is today. It's got a fantastic performance, even down to the child actors. Absolutely kill it. So I give the edge to Poltergeist, but I'm also with you. I'm easily flipped to The Fly. Like they're both amazing movies.
Yeah, and I mean, if it's a contest of practical effects, they're about even too. Like,
Yeah.
And I think maybe as far as characters go, there are more colorful characters in Poltergeist. I love the short lady that's a medium.
Yeah. The fake celebrity medium who like doesn't actually know what she's doing is great. I love that it's included.
She's great. She's great. But I don't. I think the character work in The Fly is probably superior, but then again, it's not really fair because there are only 3 major characters in that movie. But because the movie takes so much time to focus on each one of them, it makes the ending that much more sad and that much more devastating. I think the ending for Poltergeist is maybe a bit abrupt for me. I wish I had more time to kind of to see the family crying in the car on their way out after seeing the house crumble down. On the other hand, like seeing the dismantling of the nuclear family in Poltergeist is really, really devastating and sad. I will say this though. There are better body horror movies by David Cronenberg than The Fly. I think he did surpass himself later on. And I think, with Poltergeist, you're never going to get that lightning in a bottle creative relationship between the director of Texas Chainsaw Massacre and the director of Jaws.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane. That's insane. And so I'll give it to Poltergeist.
All right.
It's more fun too.
Yeah. I think if I'm going to rewatch one of these, it would be Poltergeist. I watched The Fly way too young also. So it was like kind of off-putting at first, but my rewatches were, I was a big fan. I don't know why my mom, when I was like 10, was like, hey, have you seen The Fly? And I'm like, why would I have seen The Fly?
Oh my God, Mom.
Yeah. And so we'll give it to Poltergeist on this one.
Shall we take a pee break?
I'm down.
Okay. Tune in tomorrow for part 2, where we figure out the best of these 32 movies.